My initial thought was that didn't sound like a 30-06, and that didn't perform like a 30-06. I thought some sort of suppression must have been used on the rifle to account for how quiet it was. Not long after the rifle was found and images were posted online, and it was clearly visible no suppressor was on the barrel. And also, what struck most people, the setup of the rifle, how far back the scope was mounted, where the rings were, none of it made sense. Now, I'm not a trained professional. I'm a hunter from Australia. I reload my own ammunition for my 300 Win Mag, which is a 30 caliber rifle, slightly bigger than a 30-06. In Australia we call them a 30-06. America you call it a 30-06. So I contemplated what could have happened over the following days. Initially I came to the conclusion that it may have been old surplus military ammo that wasn't stored correctly. Thus, when it was fired, it was almost a subsonic round. It wasn't travelling very fast and it wasn't very loud, which I thought was a feasible explanation for the events of how it didn't do what we thought it would in the neck, or what it should have done for a 30-06. Now I started looking at ballistic performance, working off probably a common bullet weight for a 30-06. Mid-range I decided to go with 165 grain bullet weight. Now I am speculating and I do not know all the facts, but I think I can put this together in a way that makes sense. Yes, the bullet weight could have been heavier with going faster, or the bullet weight could have been lighter, travelling slower. I don't know. None of us know yet. That information hasn't been released as to what bullet weight there was. I never believed Tyler was an expert marksman, and I never thought that he had much skill at all behind the rifle. I never thought he was anything special behind the rifle. My theory is Tyler aimed at Charlie's head and the bullet struck approximately 7 or 8 inches lower than where he expected it to. Now, it doesn't make sense to aim for the neck at that range, and at a 10-degree angle, Charlie looking straight, there wouldn't have been much neck showing at all. He would have been aiming for his head. So given that we have an assumption of bullet weight 165 grain, have an assumption that the rifle was sighted at 100 yards, that means the bullet has potentially dropped 7 to 8 inches in the 42 yards that it travelled past the 0 point at 100. So that gives us an idea that we can work out the rough velocity of the bullet as it left the gun, which I calculate to be around 1150 feet per second. Now bear with me, this is my first YouTube video. I'm not used to doing this sort of thing. I will try and clarify everything and tie it all together at the end of the video. Now at this point I was convinced that an almost subsonic 30-06 round had hit Charlie, but it still didn't totally make sense, and it just didn't quite add up still, because if it was a one-off faulty round, degraded round, and the rifle was zeroed using normal ammunition, the degraded faulty round travelling at the speeds that I suggested, 1150 feet per second, if that rifle was sighted using factory ammo, the projectile that Tyler shot would have struck approximately 22 inches low, or 16 to 22 inches low. It would have hit Charlie in the stomach. That's when I realised the rifle must have been sighted in zeroed in at 100 yards using almost subsonic ammunition. Now this is when the pieces of the puzzle start to fall together. Just bear with me through this. Thinking back to the rifle itself, how it was set up. It was set up with the scope mounted as far back as possible. That rifle, in my opinion, and this is speculation, was set up by potentially Tyler's grandfather and given to Tyler when he was a young teenager, say. That explains why the scope's mounted so far back so a smaller person can use it. And I also believe that Tyler's grandfather or his father must have hand-loaded .30-06 ammunition for that rifle specifically for a young man to use. It wouldn't make sense to give hot load standard factory ammo to a young teenage boy. This ammunition was tailor-loaded for Tyler when he was young. Now, I believe, my theory is Tyler never really used the gun much. He kept the same ammunition, never messed around with the scope. It was how it was when his grandfather gave it to him, with the ammunition that his grandfather gave to him when he was young. So, in my opinion, Tyler took the shot using this almost subsonic ammunition at roughly 142 yards. He aimed for Charlie's head, but the bullet dropped 7 or 8 inches, maybe more, before it hit Charlie. Now, this is getting into where it starts to explain the impact. A standard .30-06 round, factory ammo, at 142 yards, would have hit Charlie with energy probably exceeding 2,245 foot-pound, and it would have hit him at approximately 2,475 feet per second. But going by my calculations and what I think is the only explanation, the ammo that was actually used was hand load, almost subsonic when it left the muzzle, and it struck Charlie with roughly 398 foot-pound of energy at 1,042 feet per second. I believe by the time it hit Charlie, the bullet was subsonic, which is roughly 5.5 times less energy than a standard .30-06 round would have struck Charlie. Now, in my mind, this explains why the shot was quiet, why it didn't have an exit wound, and when you think about it, the bullet was already on a downward trajectory. It was almost falling out of the sky by the time it hit Charlie. I mean, it still had plenty of energy. It's struck Charlie, didn't have the full velocity of a .30-06. It's subsonic, in my opinion, by the time it hit Charlie. It's hit his spine and deflected down into his chest cavity, which makes, to me, it makes perfect sense as to what happened on the day. Now, what happened to Charlie, it hit me pretty hard. any farther, it would hit you pretty hard. It's pretty hard not for it not to. So my full respect to Charlie and his family, and to Tyler's family. I don't hold them responsible. They were probably are a good family, and it's not their fault what their son did. Now, I hope this information helps put people's mind at ease and helps us move on to maybe looking at other angles and trying to figure out how exactly he got radicalised the way he did. If you find this information helpful, if it puts your mind at ease, I had to get this video out just to put my mind at ease that the information's out there now. I hope it puts your mind at ease. If it does, feel free to subscribe, like, share it. I'm open, if there's any demand, I'm open to put my opinions out there on other topics. I'll leave it there. I've got to get back to work. Have a good day.